Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show. I'm Gianna Cambria, founder of UpperHand Creative, and today we're talking about why you should outsource your graphic design. So as an entrepreneur or business owner, the game of entrepreneurship or business is a game of managing your resources. And we're all limited by the same two. That's money and time. The one that can figure out how to maximize both of those wins. But if you run out of either, you get knocked out of the game. So because of this, we have to be extremely intentional when it comes to how we choose priorities in our business and what we choose to hire out. Typically, if we can hire something out and spend our time on something that has higher value, then we should hire that thing out. But if it's something we can maximize and it doesn't take away from other priorities, then we may want to just find the most efficient way for us to own that thing. When it comes to your brand, being consistent in how you present yourself is a non-negotiable, right? Branding is the most powerful thing you can do to build a lasting and loyal customer base, and in turn, skyrocket your revenue. So it's all about creating an emotional connection. If you listen to any of the other episodes on the show, we talk about this pretty heavily as well, but it's all about creating an emotional connection with people. And a lot of times, since humans are mainly visual creatures, that emotional connection is first established with visuals, right? It's why we can so easily buy into movies. We're visually drawn to them first and foremost, which allows us to then take in the story. And when it comes to your business, having a strong visual presence requires that you've done the work and defined your brand internally, right? And if you haven't listened to that episode yet, I break that down in great detail. Go check it out. That's episode 4, I believe. But that requires a reliable designer that knows your brand and that you've established a clear line of communication with. And if you've ever tried to establish this on your own in your business, you know what a feat it is. So bottom line, finding a talented, reliable designer is hard, right? And as a busy entrepreneur or business owner, we need to be able to focus on the important pieces and get the rest off of our plate, which in turn is maximizing our limited time and money. But oftentimes, content creation is a huge piece that we shouldn't necessarily fully delegate. And while this is something we can delegate in part, a lot of times we're the ones that tend to create the best content for our business, right? We know it best, and it's something that we should probably hold on to. However, that doesn't mean that we should be involved in every part of the process. For some, you may just do the research and provide the topics for the right content to create and have someone else own the creation. For others, it means putting together the basic outline and handing it over to polish it and make sure it's on brand. Either way though, it requires time, which means that we can't afford to be wasting time on finding the right designer or trying to do it ourselves. So when it comes to graphic design, why do I say this is something you absolutely should delegate unless you're a designer yourself? Reason number 1, simply put, is opportunity cost. Right? This is something I talk a lot about because it's powerful. If you've taken a high school or college economics class, you've probably heard the phrase, but it's more than an economic theory, and the way they explain it in class is not the way I'm going to explain it here likely, but it's the crutch of maximizing our resources of time and money. So opportunity cost is the cost of what you're giving up when you say yes to something else. Essentially, if we devote our time to a task, we take away that time that we could be spending on something else. And sometimes we get this right. Sometimes we choose the wrong thing to focus on. When it comes to time management, this is at the core of how we prioritize. You should constantly be evaluating what you're choosing to spend time on against your priorities. Is what you're saying yes to part of your priorities? Or are they the wrong things and you're sacrificing time that you should be spending on something else? If I choose to spend an hour of my time on emails, then that takes away an hour of my time I could be spending on lead nurturing or sales calls, right? And maybe at that time, the emails are what I need to do. Maybe I'm responding to customers, handling issues, or extending their lifetime value, right? But most of the time, it's likely that I'm just responding to what I feel is urgent in the moment, and it's really not, right? So those things can likely wait, while that hour of my time should be spent on content creation, right? Same with graphic design. If I spend 3 hours trying to figure out the layout of my new ebook or messing around on Canva on my next social media post, even if I've got it down and it only takes me 10 minutes, 10 minutes a post on Canva, that's still time that I take from creating new content instead, right? Or doing sales calls or reaching out to new leads. the things that are really going to drive my business at the end of the day. So if you added up all the time you spend on figuring out graphic design, you'd have at least close to an hour on the low end and multiple hours on the high end a week that you could be spending on other things in your business. Those things are the things that are actually going to move the needle. But if you haven't taken the time to clearly define what those activities are, you'd never know what you're truly taking away from yourself. Fuel the things that move you forward, get rid of the rest. And if you're not a designer yourself, as I said before, doing your own design is holding you back, period. Same thing if you have a designer that you have to constantly go back and forth with, or that doesn't understand your communication, or that you always have to go search through Fiverr to find. Free up tons of time just by saying yes to the right priorities and no to wasting time on design, right? With UpperHand Creative, you're able to spend 2 minutes typing in your task. And because of the quality of our team, they get your direction and run with it, getting it right usually on the first try with a few minor revisions in 90% of our projects, right? So you've got to find that for your team. Reason number 1 is opportunity cost. You could be spending the time you're using on graphic design on other more important things in your business that will actually move the needle for you. Reason number 2 why you should outsource graphic design: save money and time. Right? This reason may not seem so obvious because there's usually a stigma associated with graphic design help that it's expensive, and it can be depending on where you go. That's why we're honing in on outsourcing and not just hiring a freelancer or an in-house employee. Outsourcing, especially from the US to a foreign country, allows you to leverage geographic arbitrage, which is just the concept of using a stronger currency in a country where their standard currency is weaker, right? The cost of living is lower. In other words, the US dollar goes a very long way in countries like the Philippines, right? What costs a few hundred US dollars has a spending power of 5 to 10 times that in the Philippines. So this means that I can find a great, talented designer and pay him or her a very nice wage in their country, even though it's less than, say, $5 to $6 an hour for me here in the US. And this is mutually beneficial for lots of reasons. The main one being for someone living in the Philippines making a monthly salary of $400 to $600 US, they are well above the median income there, and they can afford a really nice lifestyle, send money back to their family. And then there's the obvious benefit for me here in the States, as I get a fantastic addition to my team at a very reasonable price, and I keep my overhead low so I can scale fast. Also, I really like the Philippines best for outsourcing because of their culture. And it's beautiful, and one day I really want to go visit. But communication is typically very easy because they speak American English, and there's a lot of overlap in our cultures. I've had great experiences with this, but it does take some effort on your end to put the right systems in place and manage your team. So it's not a hands-off approach. But the other option, if you want more of a hands-off approach but still want to leverage the power of geographic arbitrage, is finding a company that does this for you, like UpperHand Creative. All the systems, onboarding, training, managing, hiring, and firing is handled by someone else. So you just get the benefit of the team's work, and oftentimes a lower price on your membership than what you would pay for one designer per month. Right? And with something like UpperHand, you get the experience and skill sets of multiple designers instead of just one. And you can also use Fiverr, Upwork, or any other freelancer site, but it's a lot riskier as you'll need to thoroughly vet all the candidates for their skill set. And likely, you're gonna pay a little bit more here, especially on Upwork, where the platform charges fees, and a lot of freelancers will roll these fees onto you in the form of higher hourly rates. Fiverr is typically cheaper, but very inconsistent. And the quality will usually suffer because it's typically a volume play, right? The designers on that platform, they want to get through your project as fast as possible so they can get on to the next and the next and the next, right? That's how they make their money, by doing a high volume of gigs. So depending on your needs, all could be good options. But if you know what the pros and the cons are and use that to your advantage, the bottom line is, by outsourcing, no matter which option you go, you'll be saving yourself tons of money compared to what you'd pay, say, an in-house designer. And not to mention, an in-house designer, you have benefits and all the other expenses that go along with a full-time or even part-time employee. And that's another benefit of outsourcing, is building that long-term relationship so you'll have the trust and reliability with that person. You save tons of time to go do other things. And lastly, reason number 3 to outsource your graphic design is because it will allow you to do what you do best. you can use the power of specialization in your business by outsourcing design, right? And Peter Drucker and Tom Peters, both authors and renowned business management experts, they say to do what you do best and outsource the rest as a business owner, right? So let someone else take on the tasks and projects that don't fall under your company's core competencies. The quality of work you'll get from leveraging the expert far surpass anything you could have put together internally at a lesser cost to you. You also save time, again, as the expert will be able to produce better quality in a shorter amount of time. So making another economics reference, think about it like this. You live on an island and you specialize in growing corn, right? You're really good at it. And you spend your days doing just that. And in this example, there's only one other island, your neighbor. And they specialize in making farm tools. And they're really good at that. If I decide that I want to go and make my own farm tools, I now not only have a learning curve, but I likely will never even be half as good or efficient at it as my neighbor who has spent his entire life doing this, right? No matter how much I learn or practice. On the other side of that, if I take even 2 hours out of my day to work on building farm tools, that's 2 hours fewer I have to harvest corn, which means my overall output is going down. But if, say, I'm gonna just buy the farm tools from my expert neighbor, not only will I get tools that are probably the best of the best, but I don't have to take time out of harvesting corn. And my efficiency will likely skyrocket as I now spend the same amount of time working, but with better tools. So therefore, my output can go up. So you can see how this works in a business setting, right? That output is your revenue. So as a business owner, you should focus on the things that you do best, that you can't outsource or delegate, and let someone else do the rest. Let someone else take on everything else in your business. Your time is limited and you have to allocate it as efficiently as possible. So again, back to Peter Drucker, he says that effective executives do first things first and they do one thing at a time. So spending your time trying to figure out how to use Photoshop is probably not your best use. So there you have it. And if by now you're not convinced that you should be outsourcing your graphic design just yet, you probably need to go back and listen to the episode again. But if you're ready to start finding your own reliable designer, you can grab my cheat sheet where I give you the roadmap to outsourcing your design. You can grab that over at get.upperhandcreative.com/cheat sheet. Or if you're ready to just have somebody else do all the heavy lifting for you, check out our unlimited graphic design memberships. They start at just $379 a month. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for joining in. Hopefully you got something from this. If you did, share the episode, leave us a review, leave us a comment. Would greatly appreciate it. And we will see you on the next episode.